Ireland, England, Six Nations. Good way to start my day over here in New Zealand. 5:45 a.m. 32 points to 18. Very good Irish victory. Also lends a little bit more credence to the fact that maybe the Andy Farrell way has a wee bit of promise about it. I know he copped a bit of stick after those two opening losses, but remember they were close. And it's another step forward. England, Eddie Jones is going to cop all kinds of criticism as well. But he's had a bad year with England before. I'm not sure I'm ready to write him off as yet either. I'll go over some of the key events of the game, some of the stats, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how things went as well. Like I said, it was a good game to get up and watch pretty early before the sun came up. It didn't start that way. It was kind of intense, but a bit lacking in execution for about the first 20 odd minutes. It was a wee bit scrappy, knock-ons. At one point, Aki takes the ball back of a scrum, wasn't it? Scrum move, and he just runs and gets pummeled into touch. England knocked it on, I think, in a few phases on attack. It was just... Oh, no, Daly kicked it out on the full. It was just, a wee bit lacking early on. The first points went England's way at 8 minutes. They scored the first penalty, 3-0, so there was a lead change in this game. And interestingly, because England probably started the quicker of the two out of the blocks, which is often what they do under Eddie, second half as well, but 11 minutes, they had a 5-metre maul. And England went for... It was almost like a trick play where nobody jumped. They just threw a short ball to Itoje. And he just caught it standing, kind of old school. And because Ireland had decided to compete in the air rather than just set the maul defence, Tyg Byrne was kind of almost lifted out of the way. So they were especially a man down. So... It's a miracle that Ireland didn't manage to concede at that point, or that England didn't manage to score, because the fact that they were set to drive and Ireland jumped should have put them way on the back foot, but it was held up. And England from there had a 5-metre scrum, but then they got free kicked for an early push. They were trying to turn the screws, but it just wasn't... Yeah, the execution is still not quite there. No real excuses for the early push, and it's not the only time they do it. 15 minutes, Henshaw, who gets man of the match, puts a monster of a tackle on Ford. It forces a turnover, and they later win a penalty, which Ireland surely kick to make it 3 points apiece. 19 minutes, and again, this is what I mean by about the first 20 minutes were kind of a wee bit scrappy. Like, there's a high ball way too deep into Ireland's 22. Murray's under it. And it's so deep that nobody can really contest it. It's a poor kick. And Murray just inexplicably, if I can't pronounce that word, inexplicably, just it's like standing a metre far. Maybe it's swirling in the air. He's just a metre too far back. Ball bounces. Aki manages to get him, save his blushes. But man, what was going on? It was kind of madness. Kilcoyne, interestingly, went off with an HIA, which is pretty unfortunate. He took a bit of a whack to the head. You never like to see that. He looked pretty groggy. But the game really came alive, and it was the moment I knew getting out of bed was the right call with the Earls try on 21 minutes. It's an Irish line-out move, and they pop the ball down to Earls, who hits it at pace. He manages to beat Billy V, who's kind of one of the closer guys to the line-out. And then he just steps Johnny May. And Johnny May manages to kind of catch him up to tackle him, but he's already over the line. It's like a perfect, just sweet, planned move that went off pretty much flawlessly. Great move. You love seeing that kind of stuff. It's why... for all it's mostly scrums to get the stick more than lineouts, but people seem to be wanting to hurry up the set piece, and sometimes I agree with it, but set piece tries can often produce some of the best tries, and this was a proper cracker. 10-3 at that point. Farrell kicks a penalty for England to make it 10-6. About 4 minutes later, Sexton reverses it with Ireland getting a scrum penalty. Again, not long later, so it's 13-6. And then right before halftime, on 36 minutes, Conan gets a try. And it's maybe even better than the first one. It's a great try. It's a really good one. Ireland went through like a million phases, maybe 20, around about that. And they were going forward. Like, if you've watched England and Ireland, I think it was last year, there was that one game where Ireland were just banging on England's door and they weren't getting anywhere, and it was kind of painful to watch. They were getting forward in this one. Like, they started on halfway, they pushed their way towards the 22, and then Sexton decides to cross kick it. And I'm thinking, man, you've gone through like 16 or 18 phases and now you're just going to kick it. You guys are going forward, just hold on to the pill, but I'll be quiet. Because Keenan, how on earth does he beat Daly in the air to that ball? He must have a Gaelic football background. It's unbelievable. Daly kind of tries to claim the mark, but he hasn't got the ball. It's a top take. And then a few more phases. Conan has the Inspector Gadget arms. Go-Go Gadget arms reaches out for the line. It was just relentless from Ireland. It's the Ireland of old in a good way. Proper stuff. And yeah, it's a good lead for Ireland at half-time, man. Possession is 54-46 at half-time. Territory 62-38. Handling errors is 4 to Ireland, 5 to England at half-time. So there was a lot of handling errors in that first half. That's a lot for 40 minutes of rugby. Tackling was pretty high for both sides, within the 90% range, but England having to make almost double what Ireland made in that first half. Second half, Earls, who's having a good game, he gets smashed, and England win a penalty early, but they go for a line out, and then with things still not clicking, they give away that obstruction penalty. I think it's Itoje that jumps, and then Curry gets between the ball carrier and the opposition. So we've seen a lot of that being penalised in the Six Nations this year. It's another one, so the teams still haven't quite learned. It looks like there's a wonder try for Keith Earls on 48 minutes. He's involved in everything. But the TMO has to check for a knock on. And my notes here are pretty bad because my son at that point wakes up. It's early in the morning. He's heard me talking to a microphone because I'm doing a live stream. And yeah, the try, eventually though, I missed the decision, but it gets chalked off. I believe they said there was a knock-on from Healy. There was a little bit of messy play in the build-up, and there's a knock-on which is called there. So they go back for a penalty, and it's 23 points to 6. At that point, it's looking pretty much done, maybe. I mean, teams have certainly come back with half an hour to go, easy. But it wasn't looking likely in this game anyway. 54 minutes. England's attack again. They've just got a crossing obstruction penalty, so it still hasn't really clicked. It's not great. Farrell goes off. 60 minutes. Furlong wins a scrum penalty. I'm not sure if he wins it, but they win a scrum penalty, and Furlong it looks like he's won the lottery. He is that pumped. Like, it's really great in a game which is not for a trophy. To see it still kind of had that much meaning about it. But they kick the penalty, so it's 26 points to 6, and 20 points, 3 scores England need is looking pretty hairy for England. But then, only a few minutes later, Bundy Aki gets red carded. And it's one that will also cause a wee bit of debate. Remember, I'm sitting here watching it on this tiny television. My first couple of looks, I thought, that looks all right. But then there was one angle that did show Aki's shoulder kind of hit Billy V in the chin. It wasn't like he took his head off. He just made a bit of contact with the chin, which under the current laws, is just too high. He starts too high. People will say Billy V dipped. You got to get lower. It's just the way the game is reffed. It's the way the laws are. But like I said, first 2 viewings for me on the tiny telly, I thought, nothing much there, but yeah, they gave him the red card, so it doesn't have any difference on the game, him going off for the red, but it did give England a bit of impetus going forward, especially straight after it. Youngs gets a try. It's pretty much straight after the red card. They get a 5-meter scrum. Why do I feel like it was a maul? My notes are not great, but I remember George peeling off the side. It must have been a maul. and then he gives it to Youngs. It was an early game. And yeah, England missed the conversion, but it's 26-11. Sexton slots a penalty in off the post, 29-11 on 68 minutes. So it's starting to look, again, the momentum shifting back towards Ireland's way. But Murray gets yellow carded 3 minutes before time. England a bit of relentless pressure, and Murray gives away an offside penalty. So it's 13v15. Sure enough, that gives enough space. You got two backs off the field. England call for a scrum. That part I remember. And Johnny May goes in for a try on the left. Daly, I think it was, quickly slotted a droppy for the conversion, but there's no more points after that. It's 32-18. That's the way the game is going to finish. It finishes 13v15. So yeah, if you're an Irish fan, I think you'd be pretty happy with that performance. Honestly. Andy Farrell's team has not been that far away. Possession finishes 52-48, territory 49-51, so the territory kind of evened up in that second half. Interestingly, AWS, which does the stats for the Six Nations, has a stat called bad passes, and it was 7-3 with England making 7 bad passes. And I can at least remember a couple of times Young's throwing Curry the ball like at his ankles. One he gets, one he knocks on. But you can't be doing that. Handling errors is 8-5 with England having 8. So again, the errors is not great. Penalties conceded is 14-12. Scrum, I think, is 3-0 with England conceding 3 scrum penalties, although one of them was going early for a second time, so it was kind of a technical one rather than like an under pressure one. One of them, at least one of them's Muckle, got his arm on the ground, but yeah. England loved a maul in this game. They had 8 mauls to 3. It wasn't always effective. The Irish maul defence was pretty solid, but I think they did win at least 1 or 2 penalties from England, so... But it just seemed to be a very consistent tactic that they were going down. Tackling percentages, both of them are pretty high. I think Ireland missed 13 tackles, England missed 11, so pretty similar across the course of the game. 125 attempts to 134, pretty similar. So England ended up with a slightly higher tackling percentage for what that's worth. Individuals, Henshaw gets man of the match. He was everywhere. Tyke Byrne was everywhere, makes 11 from 11 tackles. Van der Fleer makes 11 from 12. For England, Itoje makes 14 from 14. I think Wilson's count was pretty high as well. Earls, 42 run meters, 2 defenders beaten. Lawrence, who came into the side, like Mellons got injured, I think, in the warm-up. So Daly didn't get to play centre. He played fullback. So then they played Lawrence, and he gets like 2 carries for 7 meters. Is the ball just not going his way for England? Yeah, not great reading. Marco Vunipola concedes 3 penalties. The scrum ended up being a big plus for Ireland. It's something we've been talking about on this channel for a few weeks anyway. The Irish scrum is just such a weapon. I thought the Scots did pretty well against it because the Irish pack is a proper unit, and they proved it the case in this one. So, yeah, good win. 32-18. Irish fans will go into Sunday with a smile on their dials. England, yeah, it's not been the greatest Six Nations campaign, but I am thinking back to 2018. England have a bad year, and then Eddie manages to turn it around in not too long. So I'm trying not to keep that attitude about what's current is the only thing that's real. Like, it's only a year ago that Wales were terrible, and now they're 1 game away from a Grand Slam, which I'm about to watch in about 15 minutes. England, it's not been a great Six Nations, but I don't think that means you write them off by any means. So anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts on the game, key moments. As I said, I got up pretty early, so if I've missed anything, do let us know in the comments. Other moments you thought were good, players you thought had a good impact. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.